Can you really afford to retire?
This job, you want to quit, but you can't.
Is that 4% rule really working, or is there something else we should be using? Well, let me dive into this. I'll even show you the example of what happened in my own life with my father and how this could actually apply to you too, to make sure that you could actually afford to survive. All right, so let's talk about this. We've always heard this 4% rule, right? Which just says this. It says that if you happen to have $100,000, if you want to have your money not outlast you, the supposed rule is that if you make 4% or you only take out 4%, that means you can live on, in this case, $4,000 per year. Of course, if you have that money in a 401k or an IRA, then you got to pay taxes on that. So party on, right? So that's the kind of basic 4% rule. However, there has been evidence coming out, and really for years, that the 4% rule is a little bit aggressive. This works if you're older, but I know many people that want to retire early are still following the same rule, and it doesn't work out that well. By the way, this rule, this 4% rule, wasn't even a real rule. It was actually taken from a guy. He took the stock market from 1924 to 1974. He took that period of time and he says, hey, well, based on these scenarios I ran, these Monte Carlo simulations as they call it, I ran all these scenarios. If you only pulled out 4% a year, you should be fine. There's a few problems with this though. Right after that happened, or right about the same time that he ended those years, we were taken off the gold standard. Inflation started roaring faster and higher. Another problem is that the stock market hasn't always been the same. And people are also living longer. So instead they're saying it shouldn't be 4%, it should really be more like 3%, and then you're safer. Well, guess what? That just means you just got a nice little pay decrease, not for inflation purposes. Now it's worse. Now you're only making $3,000 a year for every $100,000 you have. So even if you wanted $30,000 a year, you got to now have an extra one. Now this can't be $100,000. This has got to be $1 million. $1 million, right? It's got to be $1 million even just to make $30,000 a year, right? Is that enough really? Is that what you really want? Now you have Social Security. Can you see why people moving to retirement are begging for Social Security? Just so you know, looking at Fidelity's numbers, just updated it here this recently. Just this year, Fidelity's numbers say there's only about 810,000 people that have over $1 million actually saved up in their 401ks or IRAs. 800,000, guys. That's just over 1.5% of all of their clients. I can guarantee they got a lot more baby boomer clients than 1.5%. That's a problem. So most people can't even get to this point because they were lied to what the real rate of return was. But secondly, this right here, that's not even enough to be free for most people. So what does that mean? If you want I have a lot of people that say they want at least $100,000 a year. Well, if you want $100,000 a year and you're in the stock market, guess what? You need, instead of this 3%, you now need $3.3 million. You got to have over $3 million, which there's a much tinier fraction of the population that can actually do that. So 3.3 million is almost impossible for most people to get to in 40 plus years. But remember, there are people out there that want to retire earlier than age 60. I would even change that rule to 2% if you don't want to run out of money, and they have math to back that up. 2%, well now if you want $100,000 a year, now you need, guess how much? $5 million, and you got to do it faster because you're trying to do it when you're younger. Guys, this is getting ridiculous. Good news is there's an answer, right? And by the way, this is what happened with my dad. My dad had the same situation. He was debt-free. He saved and stuffed money in his 401k his whole working career, and yet, guess what happened? I met with him. I said, Dad, if you want to retire today based on how you're spending money, you're gonna have to die in 5 years. You will run out of money in 5 years. And he was 60, or he's already 61 by that point. This guy was dirt cheap. This guy was saving everything he could. And yet, even if he's debt-free, just like good old Dave Ramsey tells you should be the miracle thing to happen in your life, it wasn't enough. Guys, there's a better way to do this. But it's not doing the mutual funds, the 401ks, IRAs. I don't care if you get the company match. It doesn't do jack squat, especially when the returns on those 401k funds are worse than even the stock market. So your match, all it does is just help you get stock market returns, which aren't even as good as people say they are. So what does that mean? Well, if I want that same $100,000 a year, I don't have to save $5 million. What I need though is I need to get my money to pay me more money. Let's just say I can earn 10% in a real estate fund, which by the way, yes, there are several of those out there. Does it mean it's guaranteed? No, but then again, you're gambling in the stock market. Nothing in your life is guaranteed if you're doing that kind of crap. So if I want to make $100,000 a year using real estate, the thing I have to do is I need to make sure that I have money kicking off. So if it's paying me 10% a year, and that's just the cash flow, that's not paying me any principal, that's just the interest, guess what? I only need, instead, $1.2 million. Now That's not a 12, that's $1.2 million, right? That's way better than 5 million if I were to retire when I'm younger. It also is a more achievable number, isn't it? I can get to 1.2 million a lot faster than 3.3 or even $5 million. That's even if I earn 10%. But guess what? What if I can even earn 12% on that money? I can drop off that 0.2. All I need is $1 million. You know, I'll give you an example. We had a client where he actually had $1 million in his retirement account. He spent all of his working years to the age of 60 to get to $1 million. His financial advisor said, and the financial advisor, I'm glad he was honest, said, okay, buddy, now you have this $1 million, you can pull off $30,000 a year. And then you're gonna pay a bunch of tax on that too. He's like, that's not enough. I'm gonna be walking away with maybe $2,000 a month after taxes. I want more. He started searching for podcasts, going on YouTube and everything else. Found me on another podcast, started following our stuff. He started to invest. He bought things like duplexes. He bought into an apartment syndication, which means he bought ownership in an apartment building with other investors. He also invests in things that are oil and gas based. And guess what? That $1 million is now kicking off for him, ranging between 100 to 130,000 per year. Not 30, 100 to 130,000 a year. Guys, that's how you do it. That's what happened for me as a financial advisor. That's what shifted my mind. I said, I can't keep teaching this crap anymore. I can't keep being a financial advisor because it doesn't work. But this has been proven to work with tens of millions of people in America already. Why not do it? Versus 800,000 that might make $1 million inside their 401ks, and that's the majority of people. Come on. Like, I like to go where there's proof in the pudding. Proof is right here, guys. Again, no guarantees. But you know what? Nothing's guaranteed right now. But I know that odds are in my favor when I invest in things like cash flowing real estate. That's something that can actually work. Now, speaking of $1 million, guys, how do you safely keep $1 million in the bank? Or can you? Check out this next video. I'm gonna answer that question where maybe you can store that money more safely.